Hi everyone, I'm Celeste. Welcome to my booktube channel, A Reader's Almanac. Today I am bringing you kind of a March mishmash of possibilities, things that I would like to read in the month of March, many of which I may not get to. The first one I'm not going to go into detail about because I'll be discussing it in April, but my friend Heather from Water Bear Reads and I are going to be reading All of a Kind Family Uptown, and so I did get a copy of this. I did not have this one in my collection, so I'm really excited. I think this is the fourth one in the series, and the kids are starting to grow up, and it is the advent of World War I, and you know that this time period is such an important one for me. I don't know why, but it's always resonated very strongly with me. From about 1895 to 1920. And in fact, I plan on doing another video sometime later this year on the literature of that time period. But in any event, that's when this is set. And so it's just more heartwarming adventures in everyday life of this family. And I dearly love these books. I love the illustrations. It's fun to do these buddy reads with Heather, so I'm really looking forward to reading this to prepare for probably like mid-April. So that's that one. And then I also have a number of books here which are mainly middle grade and mainly focus on children in wartime. And so I guess the advent of World War I in the All of a Kind Family Uptown book is a good segue to that. The first book from that sort of grouping that I want to share for you of books I would like to read that are middle grade, that would be good for middle grade March, books about children and war, is this one. And this is called Fly Away Home by Christine Nostlinger. And this cover is just so beautiful. I love the artwork. It says the cover illustration is by Giordano Poloni, and this is from Vintage Classics, and this is translated. And Christine Nostlinger, there's like a little biography of her in here. It says, Christine Nostlinger is a well-known Austrian author and has written many books for children and young people. She was born in 1936, and Fly Away Home is based on her experiences as a young girl in Vienna, the capital city of Austria, during the spring of 1945 when the Second World War was coming to an end. And apparently this book is set in the last months of the war when the Allied forces, that is the Americans, the Russians, and the British, bombed and invaded Austria, and depicts the turmoil, hardship, and confusion of that time. The occupying Germans were defeated, only to be replaced by Russian troops. In fact, Allied forces would occupy Austria for the next 10 years. So this is at the tail end of the war in Austria. It's based on the author's true life childhood experiences. And so, yeah, the writing style, the prose style so far looks just outstanding. I'm just loving the little that I've read of it so far. And yeah, and in the back there's like questions and answers and glossary and all kinds of things, ways to test your knowledge. So there's a section in the back on that. I had thought of saving this for, what month is it? August, for books in translation. But I don't know if I can wait that long to get to it. It just from the little bit that I've started reading, it's already drawing me in. So that is Christine Nostlinger's Fly Away Home. And then the next book I have is another one about a child in wartime, again during World War II. This one is called The Endless Steppe by Esther Hautzig. And this has won a number of awards. And I will just read you the little bit from the back here. In June 1941, the Rudiman family is arrested by the Russians. They are accused of being capitalists and enemies of the people. Forced from their home and friends in Vilna, Poland, they are herded into crowded cattle cars. Their destination, the endless steppe of Siberia. For 5 years, Esther and her family live in exile, weeding potato fields, working in the mines, and struggling to stay alive. But in the middle of hardship and oppression, the strength of their small family sustains them and gives them hope for the future. A beloved classic for 50 years, this is a remarkable true story about one of the bleakest periods in history, told by a girl who refuses to give up her resilience. And I think childhood resilience is definitely a theme in these books that I'm sharing with you here. So this won the Sidney Taylor Award. Sidney Taylor is the author of the All of a Kind books, and this won the Sidney Taylor Award from the Association of Jewish Libraries. And the beginning of this is also just grabbing me and taking me in immediately. I'll read you just the first couple of sentences here. The morning it happened, the end of my lovely world, I did not water the lilac bush outside my father's study. The time was June 1941, and the place was Vilna, a city in the northeastern corner of Poland. And I was 10 years old and took it quite for granted that all over the globe people tended their gardens on such a morning as this. Wars and bombs stopped at the garden gates, happened on the far sides of garden walls. I mean, that's already just grabbing me and taking me in. And apparently this is a very well-known book, but I have not heard of it. So it is new to me. It is The Endless Steppe by Esther Hautzig. Another book on a similar theme that is middle grade, which I have read before, is Number the Stars by Lois Lowry. This one takes place in Copenhagen and Denmark, and the year is 1943. It's about a little girl named Anne-Marie Johansen. She lives in Copenhagen with her family, and in her same apartment building is another friend of hers named Ellen. And so they are living under the Nazi regime during the war, going about their business and living in their apartment, but there are soldiers stationed around the city. But then the German troops begin their campaign to relocate all of the Jews into Denmark. I think we've heard about relocation of the other before and where that led. And so the Johansens take in Anne-Marie's best friend Ellen Rosen and pretend she's part of the family. The girls live like sisters until it becomes clear something more needs to be done to save Ellen, her family, and the Jews of Denmark. In this tale of an entire nation's heroism, the story of the Danish resistance and their plan to smuggle the entire Jewish population of Denmark, nearly 7,000 people, across the sea to Sweden, is told with pride and hope through one young girl's eyes. And this won the Newbery Medal, so it fits in very well with my project to read Newbery Medal winners and runners-ups, and or even, nominees. I have actually had an opportunity to, not in person, but online, sort of work with Lois Lowry. I once published a piece that she wrote for a magazine I created. That's a story for another day. But very gracious lady, wonderful author. She's the author of The Giver. And I have read this before, as I said, but I'm rereading it at the moment, and it's just so powerful. I think when you start stories through the eyes of a child and talk about their immediate world and their security net and their parents and their home. And then slowly the focus goes out and you see what's happening in the world outside that threatens all of that. It's just really powerful. And this too is based on a true story. Some of the events and characters are fictionalized, but the overall events of what occurred in Denmark and in Copenhagen is true. And then the next book that I wanted to share with you, I really know very little about, but it just intrigued me. And so I wanted to read this one as well. This is called Journey to Topaz by Yoshiko Uchida. And apparently this is the 50th anniversary edition. I purchased this one because I really like the cover. But in hindsight, I think I would like to go back and get a vintage copy of this book, because that copy also has really nice line illustrations. So I would like to get a copy of that as well. But this is about one girl struggles to remain brave during the World War II incarceration of Japanese Americans. And basically, anyone of Japanese descent on the West Coast was rounded up and brought to, they were like imprisoned, incarcerated in camps in California and in Utah and the West. So this explores that story. This has won a number of awards, and I don't know much about the story of the Japanese in the internment camps in the desert, surrounded by barbed wire. So this is one I definitely would like to read. Again, another lovely illustration there. She's looking at her reflection. And on that same theme, excuse me, I got this at a Savers store, which is kind of like a Goodwill. And this is the graphic novel They Called Us Enemy by George Takei. George Takei is from Star Trek fame. He played Ensign Sulu in the original series. And apparently when he was growing up, he was placed in an American concentration camp as one of 120,000 Japanese Americans imprisoned by the U.S. government during World War II. And so this is his story. Now, this is a lovely color illustration on the cover. The actual text of this is black and white. And I don't know if there's a color version or not. Maybe the hardback is in color. So I would have liked to have had it in color, but this only cost me $2, so I wasn't going to pass it up. And I love George Takei, and I love him as an actor. And so my understanding is this is a very poignant memoir told in the form of a graphic novel. So I'm looking forward to reading that. I do also have two others that I know really virtually nothing about, so I'm just going to hold them up for you because I did get them, again, at a secondhand store for like $1, $2, but I don't know very much about them. So the first is Briar Rose, a novel of the Holocaust by Jane Yolen. And I do know that this is based on, it's like a retelling of the fairy tale Sleeping Beauty, but then it's associated with the Holocaust in World War II. And I don't know if there is if it's part of, I don't know, is it the White Rose movement, Red Rose movement? I don't know. But yeah, I don't know. But in any event, I picked that up. It's one of these library editions, so it's a picture cover, but there's no inside flap that really tells you much about it. But it was in such good condition, and Jane Yolen is a good author, and it's sort of the theme I'm interested in right now for middle grade March, so I picked it up. And then additionally, I also got this, and now this is not during wartime, but it is about a child. It's a middle grade book, and it is called Fever 1793. This is by Laurie Halse Anderson. I think that's how you say her name, Halse Anderson. And so this is about a little girl named Maddie Cook, and she lives above the family coffee shop with her widowed mother and grandfather. And then yellow fever breaks out and turns her world upside down, and Maddie has to flee the city with her grandfather. She discovers that sickness is everywhere, and Maddie must learn quickly how to survive in a city turned frantic with disease. And so this is set during 1793, and there really was an outbreak of yellow fever at that time. So it shows how people cope with widespread illness and who are the helpers. And so I'm really looking forward to getting to this one. I have 5 more to share with you. And this next one is a phenomenal book that I also got at a secondhand bookstore. And I think I paid $4 for it, maybe even less than that. And it's so marvelous. It is called We Were There Too, Young People in United States History. And it's a hardcover. And this has won all kinds of awards. National Book Award finalist, ALA Notable Children's Book, the Horn Books Honor List, Publishers Weekly Best Book of the Year, Parents' Choice Gold Award book, lots of different awards. And so this is based on journals, letters, primary sources, diaries, and talks about children all throughout the history of America. And it's such a wonderful resource. Every single page that I've turned to, I want to know more about that subject and like run out and get a long, full-length biography of the person. But for example, let me just see some of my tabs here. This section here is about Sybil Ludington and her famous ride to warn that the British were coming. And she's often compared to Paul Revere. Paul Revere in 1775 had raced from Boston to Lexington to warn that the British were coming. But Sybil Ludington in 1777 was a little girl who at night over uneven terrain actually went farther than Paul Revere did to warn that the British were coming. And so she is someone I love reading about, and I would not mind reading a full-length biography about her. And then let's see, I'll just show you a couple of other examples. Oh, here's a really good one. Elizabeth Eckford, facing a mob on the first day of school. So she was a 15-year-old 10th grader in the fall of 1957, and she was one of the Little Rock Nine, the first black students to attend Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas. And so there is her picture. What I find really interesting is that in the caption under the picture, it says, "The girl in a white dress yelling at Elizabeth Eckford is Hazel Bryan Massery. Like Elizabeth, she was 15 on that day. The words on her tongue were, 'Go home, N-word.' This photograph made Hazel feel ashamed, and she called Elizabeth 5 years later to apologize. In 1997, she told a reporter, 'I grew up in a segregated society, and I thought that's the way it was, and that's how it should be. But I don't want to pass this on to another generation.'" Here is one of the Japanese internment camps that George Takei talks about and is also dealt with in Journey to Topaz. So that's an actual internment camp in the United States where the Japanese were held during the World War. And these are some little school children who would end up going there. So yeah, I feel like this is a really important book. This would also be a great choice, not only for nonfiction middle grade March, but also for the people, April, and you know, anytime you're reading epistolary or you know, going with primary sources, and especially from children, I find it a really fascinating viewpoint. You know, I love reading biography and memoir in general, but when it's a young person delivering it, it's just their outlook and the way they're viewing the world from their perspective and their age that I think can make it a very profound experience. So yeah, we were there too. And then real quick, 2 other books from the library that I've just been reading little snippets out of. Women Heroes of the American Revolution. 20 Stories of Espionage, Sabotage, Defiance, and Rescue. And I'm going to buy this because I'm going to buy all the titles in this series eventually. Maybe I can find them used on eBay or something. But these are just like little mini biographies of women in the American Revolution. And then they have it for the Civil War, World War I. And then I found another volume here. This is Women Heroes of World War II. 26 Stories of Espionage, Sabotage, Resistance, and Rescue. And to that end, I am also listening on Audible to We Band of Angels, The Untold Story of the American Women Trapped on Bataan. So this is Corregidor and Bataan, and here are all the women nurses who were there and who lived through it. And I'll just read you the little thing from the back flap here. In the fall of 1941, the Philippines were a gardenia-scented paradise for the American Army and Navy nurses stationed there. War was a distant rumor, life a routine of easy shifts and dinners under the stars. But on December 8th, all that changed, as Japanese bombs began raining down on American bases in Luzon, and this paradise became a fiery hell. Caught in the raging battle, the nurses set up field hospitals in the jungles of Bataan and the tunnels of Corregidor, where they tended the most devastating injuries of war and suffered the terrors of shells and shrapnel. But the worst was yet to come. After Bataan and Corregidor fell, the nurses were herded into internment camps where they would endure 3 years of fear, brutality, and starvation. Once liberated, they returned to an America that at first celebrated them, but later refused to honor their leaders with the medals they clearly deserved. Here, in letters, diaries, and riveting first-hand accounts, is the story of what really happened during those dark days, woven together in a deeply affecting saga of women in war. I love that in the quote on the front here, although it's covered up with the sticker, so I don't know if I can read it to you. But there's a quote from Stephen Ambrose, and he calls it a gripping war story, and we should thank God we had such women there. And that's from Stephen Ambrose, who's a pretty well-known historian of war. And this is also, you know, March is also Women's History Month. And today, actually, I'm filming this on Saturday, and it's International Women's Day. And so far, this is really just a gripping, remarkable story. I love stories of women in the military. I love stories of nurses in particular. I don't know why, because I'm kind of a hypochondriac and I'm very squeamish about things, but for some reason probably because I admire them. And yeah, I look up to them and what they did. And you know, in the present time, yeah, they're sort of covering up women's achievements in the military and what women have given for their country. The very strong women and, God, the nurses in particular, what they've done. It's just incredible. Incredible stories of resilience and bravery and heroism. And so I salute them. Another story for another day is that I actually was involved in a project where I recorded first-person reminiscences of World War II. I did a journalism project for a university, and that'll be a story for another day too, but my World War II project. So I have a really special place in my heart for the people who fought so hard to keep the world free from fascism. And then finally, I have not started this. I don't know if I'll get to this month or if I'm going to save this for like June, maybe June, July. But last year I read A Town Like Alice by Neville Shute. I was so taken with it that I did get another book by Neville Shute, and that one is called Pied Piper. And again, continuing with the war theme and the theme of children. So this is about a man called John Howard. He wants to take a fishing trip in France. However, during his stay, the Second World War breaks out, and he's forced to try to escape back to England. He takes with him the 2 small children of some friends who stay behind in order to help the Allies. And as the conflict grows closer, the roads become impassable. Howard comes across 5 more children who need his help. He ends up leading this motley group of youngsters through the French countryside, constantly beset by danger, yet heroically protecting his charges. I mean, I'm already choking up and I haven't even read it yet. But I found A Town Like Alice really profound, really good storytelling. And so I'm looking forward to this Mr. Howard and the group of children that he guided through the countryside when the war broke out. So that is Pied Piper. That is everything I have for today. I know it's a real kind of mishmash of books. I know I'm sort of rushing through my descriptions of them, but I'm super excited about all of them. These days, my brain is very scattered. Like normally, in normal times, I am able to come up with a document on the computer where I have a very specific list of books I'm going to read. Like I keep a chronological reading list with the little thumbnail pictures of each title that I'm going to read for January, February, March. This year, ever since January, I have just not been able to focus on that, and I have become a total mood reader. Sometimes I'm reading very, very slowly. And so, yeah, I can't make any promises. I'm not saying I am reading this whole list this month. I'm just showing you all the books that are in my thoughts, the sorts of books that I find interesting and that I would like to read. And I will read some of them this month, some of them maybe next month, some of them over the summer, but eventually I will get to all of them. These are the books that are in my heart and in my mind and in my spirit right now. So I wanted to share those with you. What are you reading for middle grade March? Are you doing that? Are you reading anything for Women's History Month? I think this is a super important year to read women's history for sure. And these 2 titles, for example, would be really good choices. So yeah, that's about it for today. I hope you're doing well, and we'll see you again real soon. Bye-bye.